Hey y'all, didn't we already talk this week? Oh yeah, it's the Zachrilege cast, episode 15 coming to you from somewhere in the barely blue blip of Atlanta in a very red Georgia. This is the one true video and/or podcast that features me interviewing the best and brightest of the atheist and skeptic community. Thank you again to Phil Ferguson for coming on last night, and if you haven't seen it yet, that's episode 14. A quick note. I'm not sure if I can be on civilian Facebook anymore. A former coworker posted today about her and her husband starting a church, and it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Here's a little snippet from her post. We held our first service last Sunday, and the Holy Spirit was indeed present. Pastor Watson began with Psalm 13, preached on not giving up on the promises of God. As we learned there are over 30,000 of them, and he has not broken any of them. And therefore, we must not give up no matter what it looks like. Perhaps I get Mr. Bobby to chime in for a moment on the 30,000 promises that God kept. I'm sure Miss Ashley's heard 10,000 by now because she's working her way through the Bible. I think one of those promises was to drown every living thing except for one family with a drunken, naked patriarch. So maybe the rest aren't that good. Anyway, we'll cut this half-baked introduction off. I would like to say a hey y'all to tonight's guest, Miss Ashley, who is the co-host of No Religion Required, and when she's not busy with school, she shows up on Deb's Beyond the Trailer Park as well. Steve of A Matter of Doubt made her come out as a non-believer in God, but there's a little more to the story. Didn't I just see you a couple days ago?
Yes, you did. And you know what? You still look the same, and you're still drinking.
Yeah, and I'm wearing my Paul shirt, so I don't know. It's hard to get
Paul from Coronify Me.
It's hard to get that. Yeah, I don't know if he was grousing that he wasn't there, but I was like, hey, I'm one of I think 3 people there who had one of his shirts. So hey, you get. We try to pass the love. It does help if someone actually sends me a shirt because sometimes I forget. I probably could have bought like 12 different shirts there because there were a bunch being sold.
Yes, there were. I think we picked us up a couple of them too.
And I am, of course, speaking of the ReasonCon, the convention we just attended at Hickory, North Carolina, in case people are listening to this far in the future. So tonight, I probably won't be able to get into the massive detail that Steve did. So check out the 73rd and for now last episode of A Matter of Doubt for that.
Yeah, I shut him down. Isn't that something?
I know. You were the last one. I was on Barroom Atheist last November, and it took them a month to get the show out, and I was afraid that my audio was so bad that they just decided to quit. So sometimes that happens. So, Miss Ashley, how many times have you been baptized, and do you think 2 ReasonCons washed that away?
I think the last count was 3 or 4 that I've been baptized. So I have been saved 4 times by the same denomination. And yeah, ReasonCon, ReasonCon changed me a lot from the first to the second. I went to the first, of course, as a believer, and it scared out my mind. And I enjoyed the talks and I enjoyed the people at the first one, but I was just kind of sitting back, just kind of, taking it all in. And then this year, I really got to enjoy it. I got to enjoy the people that I've met through the past year. I've got to enjoy some of our listeners, you being one of those. And, it re-solidified for me the decisions that I have made this year were the right ones.
Woohoo! Yeah, and you got it all mixed. I don't know. You've had those 2 experiences. Of course, this is my first convention to attend, and it was a little bit weird that a couple of people recognized my name. I was like,
I know
I'm just here to see people. I'm not really. Yeah, okay. I have T-shirts. I need to get beer koozies or something because I think to have a unique thing would be good. But forget about me. It's all about you. So.
Well, one of the things that really, really hit home for me this year was the people, the listeners that were coming up to me going, you Miss Ashley? And I'm, yes. And they're like, and then they start becoming this big fan, and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's you. And I'm just sitting back going, okay, I'm just a normal person here that's got problems like everybody else. So you're getting all excited about me. And then they begin to tell you why they're excited to meet you, because they can relate to what you're talking about. They can relate to your own story. And what really makes you feel good is when somebody says, it was because of you that's made me make a step forward in my life and make changes in my life. And you know what? That makes me feel so good as a person. I mean, it really does. It makes me, know that I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to keep going forward. I don't want to take any steps back. I do know the steps are going to happen. I mean, there's going to be many things that's going to push me back. It's just a matter of how I handle it and to keep moving forward.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but it seems like the only way to do it is if you're doing a show, you're just kind of sharing yourself, you're putting yourself out there, and you have no idea how the reactions are going to be. So it's great to see that you've gotten that, and that the success and acclaim hasn't gotten to your head too much.
No, and I'm not going to let it. I'm just I don't know. I'm just not like one of those people. They're like, yeah, that's me, Anne. I'm just not. That's just not me. I want to remain humble. I want to continue to help people, and I've noticed that I'm doing ums on your show too. Bobby gets on to me for that. See, I just did it again. It's difficult.
We're live, no editing.
I know it's difficult. I just want to be able to continue to help people. And, one of the things that I really, really like is that everybody's is listening to me go through the stages where I started out as a believer to a non-believer. And there's so many people out there that are going through the same exact thing that I'm doing. And I want to be able to sit down and listen to me and listen to my story and know that they're not the only ones out there. And that they can reach out to me anytime. I've had several listeners reach out, send me messages on Facebook and say, hey, I just want to let you know that, you're doing a great job. Continue to work. And when I respond to it, they freak out because they're like, I never thought that you would ever respond to it.
Well, that's one thing I like about the community. It is still relatively small, and it's there are a couple of people who are making a living doing this, but they're really, really working hard to do it, and they're not above just talking to anybody. I mean, David Smalley of Dogma Debate, his show's pretty huge, but I still make fun of him on Twitter, and he usually favorites that because it's become like a tradition, like none other.
Out of context.
I feel like apologizing to Bobby every time I say that's great. He's really caught on. So let's go through the weekend just real quick. So what was it like? Because you got to drive up with both Deb and John Carr of Dogma Debate fame. So what was that car ride like?
It was it was very nice, except for the fact that I realized I left my phone an hour out of Georgia. But hey, I started drinking at 9:30, and Deb and I sat back in the back seat of the car, and we talked about shows. We talked about Deborah is a very knowledgeable individual, if that's a word. I know individual is, but knowledgeable.
You got it.
And before she came down, she and I had just done the show together on Scientology. And I was still fascinated by what I learned on her show. So we went into a little bit more in depth about Scientology, and then we talked about the crazy wackiness, and just all around us. And John's a great man. So John sat back and was telling us all sorts of stories that he's been, that he's come across and that he's had to deal with. And, he had his dog with him, Meg. So, of course, we hung out with Meg too. And I finally got Deb to start drinking at about 12 o'clock.
So that was good for Canadian time then?
Yes. And then I asked her how it felt to be up at 6 o'clock on a morning because she's just going to bed at 6 o'clock. So, but it
Right, her schedule. That's right. Deb does the Beyond the Trailer Park and My Secular Savior, and probably four other things that I'll forget. But yeah, I got to say hi
is
and
the
get a
Holy Crap
hug, and
podcast also.
yeah, I know. So that was good to see you got the real quality time. I
Yes.
mean, because I got there at 2 and I was kind of tired from the drive. I'm like, maybe I'll take a nap. And then I heard from Barroom Atheist on Facebook. They like come over to our room, and thus it begun with the beer they brought, the beer I had brought, and people just kept piling into the room. It was like Matt the Apostle, and then a bunch of the people that were on like the AOA group online,
Right.
like Stephanie and Chris and Corrine, and you guys showed up at some point, and that room probably had 20 people, and until it was like time for the kind of dinner time gathering, we were in that room.
Up until that time. Yeah. That's what these, I mean, I've been to ReasonCon was my second one, and I went to the conference in PA last year. And from what I can tell is when we go to these conferences, that's what we do. We have like a pre-party.
So what's this one like compared to the Pennsylvania one? Because it was that last September.
Was it last September? Bobby's shaking his head. Yes. It was a little different. It was more listeners. Than there were podcasters. Bill and Susie from the Barroom Atheists were there. We were there. Jim and Misty Dobler, because we rode up with Jim and Misty Dobler. And, so we all just kind of hung out with each other. And Jim's from Pittsburgh, so he gave us a tour of Pittsburgh when we weren't in the conferences. So, I mean,
Pittsburgh too. Woohoo, Yankee here.
You are too. Well, then
I would need to rediscover it because I moved out when I was 6. But yeah, that. So if that's I saw that they were giving out the cards for this year because I know Barroom Atheist is leading off the conference. So
yes, they are.
That's a selling point if anything is. But sorry, my digression. Carry on.
No, it's okay. It's actually going to be held in Harrisburg this year. And we are going to be in Harrisburg 2 weeks before the conference for our son's wedding. So we are not going to be able to attend the conference this year. But it's nice. It's a place the conferences are places to go to hang out with your friends, like-minded people. And you don't have like your friends who might be believers or something sitting next to you and you're scared to say something to them, or you're scared to if they sneeze and you're like, okay, do you want to say God bless you want to say bless you, or if you sneeze, are they going to God bless you, or things like that? You don't. You can go to these conferences and you can be yourself, and it's so refreshing.
Yeah, it was Saturday morning, and I got up. And I had been hanging out with everybody all night, and I was wearing this shirt, and I was afraid to wear it in the hotel because it said, on the front, and then let's see if we can get the back to show up. You can actually read this without me falling over. Anyway, so that's not a shirt I'm going to be wearing to go to the grocery store, even
Right.
in Atlanta. But within like-minded people, it's like, okay. And then, of course, you go down and everybody's wearing various show kind of shirts. And I purchased a couple. Well, I purchased one more anyway.
Well, I tell you what's really awesome, because you live in Atlanta and I live in Savannah. Well, when we got home Sunday, we went down to River Street and walked around. Well, I put on my Dogma Debate t-shirt. I normally do not wear any type of shirts like that. I don't even wear my secular woman shirt out in public because you just don't know what's going to happen down here. Well, I decided I'll wear my Dogma Debate t-shirt, and I had the fourth listener one on the back. So I'm walking around, we're walking through the store, and all of a sudden, I thought, who's going to know what this is? If anything, they're going to go home and Google it if they're really interested, So I'm walking through a store, and this guy the cashier walks up to me and says, "That's a Dogma Debate t-shirt." And I'm like, yes, it is. Because it's a Dogma Debate. And he says, I listen to that show all the time. Great show. So we all gathered another listener in Savannah. But I thought, what are the odds that I decide the day that I want to wear a shirt like this, thinking nobody's going to know what it is, and voila, somebody knows and listens.
There are more people out there than you think. That's the assumption that there's no one else out there, but there are people out there. I think for people to be at the level of even to go to a conference like this, that's like you're pretty dedicated there. Because I didn't really know who knows what to expect, especially I came to this and I had met Chris Heathen once because my parents live in Nashville, and I met him for like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't met anybody else in person. So this was a totally online thing. Like, well, I don't know if we're going to get along in person. We got this one thing. Maybe we won't.
Right.
We have these two things now, beverages and so that's and t-shirts too. So yeah.
Right.
So it worked out. It worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it does. And now it wearing that shirt in Savannah, it made me think, okay, maybe I should wear another one, because the more that I wear them around here, maybe that'll allow more people to come and say, hey, they might want to come out to their family and other friends, but it lets them know here in this wonderful world of Savannah, Georgia, where there's 12 churches between here and the next mile, that we do have people here, and here's how to get a hold of us.
Yeah, I go to a free thinker group in close to where I live. It's about 12 miles away, and I'd say at least 25 churches in that span. And they're not all friends with each other.
Really?
Well, it's all various versions of Protestant, I think, in this area. I guess there's some Catholics. I got Catholics in the family, so
when we came back from downtown Savannah Sunday with Deborah, we drove her through the old neighborhood that we lived in, because we wanted her to count the amount of churches in just a small, it was literally 100 feet of each other, and we counted 6 churches.
Yeah, and I was kind of surprised there weren't more kind of Jesus-y Bible verse billboards on the way up. I think I only saw like 3.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I thought there'd be more, but there wasn't. Maybe they knew we were coming. Oh shit, Georgia's going to North Carolina.
They knew we were on the way.
That's right. They didn't want us to hurt their precious billboards.
So let's take it back to the past just a little bit. How did you get involved with No Religion Required, and when did you get started, and how did you become a regular? Because I first heard the show, after last year's ReasonCon, and I feel like you were kind of slowly becoming part of the show, but what's the story?
Okay. Bobby everybody knows that Bobby did the first 15 episodes by himself, and he would go into a room and he would talk to a wall, and he would just, now that I've been a part of it, I understand why he was angry. But he was just angry all the time. And even when he wasn't doing the show, he was just angry. I couldn't even watch TV without him going, yeah, pray for him. Let me know how that works when you pray for him. You just couldn't watch a TV show with him. And he finally, told me that he did not believe in God. And I was still practicing. Well, at first I thought we were both still practicing Buddhism until he told me that he didn't believe in, that he was an atheist. And at the time that he told me that, I had probably heard the word atheist twice in my whole entire life. And what I heard about it was not good. So I was just, okay, well, my thing is that whatever Bobby wants to do, I'm going to back him regardless in his decisions, unless it's really, really going to hurt him. So he sat me down in front of Dogma Debate and said, here, watch this. So I watched it. Then he sat me down in front of the Seitan Brugen Kate. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
And was it Bill Nye? Who was it?
Was it Matt Dillahunty?
Yes, that one. Yeah.
One in Memphis, yeah.
Yeah, he sat me down in front of that and had me watch that as my first debate. I almost broke the TV.
I was like, did your brain fall out of your head? Because Yeah, it's still, there's something about listening to a believer and getting angry. I was listening to the Dogma debate where he was interviewing a Christian,
Uh-huh.
Charlotte, the one where it was like he was Jewish, but he was also a Christian, and he was like this conservative radio guy, and it was just like,
Yes.
oh, come on.
Yeah. Doesn't it make you want to start throwing stuff at him? Well, he said, okay, well, there's this, he had heard through various of his podcasts that he listened to that ReasonCon was happening. So he decided, hey, I'm going to ReasonCon and I'd like for you to go with me. Well, I pondered it a couple of times and finally I decided to go. And after I went and I hung out with everybody on the way back, I finally listened to one of his episodes. And it happened to be the one living with a believer. So I threw something at him after I listened to it. But but after
What, pray tell, might you have called him? What,
I probably, that might have been where the whole ass thing came from. Because I did call him an ass. But when, on the way back from ReasonCon, I told him, I was like, you know what? Yeah, you need a co-host. And he's like, yeah, I know. I would have loved for you to start coming on and doing the show. And I'm like, no, because I wouldn't a year and a half ago, you wouldn't catch me on a mic. So we started recording the new, just doing like little news stories. I told him, I said, I'll do news stories and I'll, put my opinion on them. So I started doing news stories. And then after a while, after I started getting more comfortable, Bobby realized I had not read the Bible yet. So he's like, guess what we're going to start doing? And I started reading the Bible on the show. And then it just kind of, I started like doing what I was doing. It was a form of therapy for me because I was able to say things that I normally could not say out loud. And I could say it on a mic and I could get any type of thoughts that I had in my head. I could get them out. I could say what I needed to say and I felt better afterwards. And the more I did it, the better I felt. So I continued doing it.
so you make like talking to them about the Bible actually listenable because your pronunciations are great, and I'm glad that Bobby has put some of them on YouTube.
Yeah, he's
Old Holy Mama.
And the hitty titties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to pronounce. I mean, especially since some of those chapters are 50% names. It's those aren't names you hear these days.
No, it's not like you walk up and go, "Here you go, Mr. Hitty Titty. This is Miss Hitty Titty. How you doing?"
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that. They didn't have names like, well, never mind. I think they did have Zach in the Bible, didn't they?
Zachadiah or something.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Version of it. So if I start
Zachariah, that's what it was.
or start getting audio drops of David talking, I'm definitely gonna get the hi Mr. Itty Titty one from you because that's a great one.
Well, I enjoy doing it, and it, like I said, reading the Bible as a young child, it was very boring to me. I didn't want to have any part of it, and I'm glad I waited until I was an adult to read it because now I can explain things to my child. Because I don't think I'd be able to explain anything. I mean, my 14-year-old has got a lot of questions right now. And had I not read if I weren't reading the Bible, all I could do was just teach him what I was taught as a child, and which I would be doing nothing but indoctrinating him with stuff that I was taught that wasn't true.
Would you be okay talking about having him on a podcast? Because it was Atheism 101.
Yeah, he was on Atheism 101 popped his cherry. Yes, he was not on my show. He was on Atheism 101. And I think he enjoyed it. I have actually spoke to him about coming on and doing our show as well. But I think it's going to take me showing him that there's other kids his age, like Carrie Brake, for example, that are in this movement and that they're just fine and that they're his age and they're doing the same thing that he's wanting to do.
It's going to take more guts maybe more or less as being like a kid, even a teenager, and coming out like that, coming out against what is kind of the norm.
Yeah. And he has a see, he's got and that I don't want him to do anything against his father. I really don't. But he does he thinks he has his father on a pedestal that it probably in his book ranks up there with God because he thinks his dad might be God. And I have to somehow figure out how to change that because his father is teaching him things that I don't want him to be taught. Like I don't want him to be taught that a woman's place is to keep her mouth shut and let the man talk. I don't want him to be taught that it's okay for a man to hit a woman for any reason whatsoever. I don't want him to be taught that it's okay for a man to sit at home and do absolutely nothing while a woman's out there busting her ass to feed her family. So those are the type things that I have to figure out how to make sure it doesn't happen without the father's involvement.
Yeah, you've dealt with some abuse in the past with father of the kids. How was, I mean, you must have a different view of it now as you did when you were a believer, right?
I do. I do.
Did you
When
actually think like, I deserve this, or this is the way it's supposed to be?
Yeah, I actually thought that I was being punished for some type of sin that I had committed. I didn't quite know what that sin was, but I just knew, and I used to always walk around and think, okay, once God finishes punishing me for this, then I'm done. He's punished me for and I can basically try to start my life all over again and live my life according to the Bible or God's plans. And I would be done suffering and my sins would be taken care of. Yeah, that it didn't work.
And thank you for being open for talking about this, because this is it's a hard thing for me to talk about it, and I didn't even go through it. So
Well, I tell you what, a year's worth of radio show of podcasting and speaking with like-minded people like you have gotten me through a lot of it. A year and a half ago, I wouldn't have talked about it.
I mean, it's scary to talk about anything that's kind of like socially unacceptable, but these are things that are happening, and the more people bring it out, the more it can possibly not happen in the future. And having that concept that, yeah, you are broken born, even though you were designed by supposedly the perfect creator that designed you based on himself, then it's like, wow, that's a good way to kind of sell the cure to the disease, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, I even had fear of getting on the show in the beginning and even talking about anything because I knew that my ex and his mom would, you know, stalk my Facebook page and they would eventually start saying that I was on a show. And then I was scared to death that they would listen and they wouldn't take away from the show something like you would take away from the show. You would actually learn something from the show. Whereas they would try to take the show and use it against me.
Well, I was thinking in terms of that show, that was David Smalley talking to the, was it Dr. Michael Brown, who was the Jewish Christian kind of Republican wet dream, except that he's Jewish character. And I was thinking, each person talking must think the other person is living this life that is just terrible. Like the Christian must think this atheist is gonna never go to heaven and isn't living righteous, and the atheist is thinking this Christian hasn't looked at the verses and know what they mean, although the guy studied the languages. And I could see point of view. Yeah, I can't imagine certain family members listening to this. I'm not sure what they would think. There would be some shock.
Yeah, I mean, my stepmom's listened. I don't know how far she got because apparently my stepmom likes to stalk my Facebook page also, as well as Bobby's. But she had made the comment that she tried to sit down and listen to it one day. And that's as far as the comment went. And I don't know if, I mean, my dad used to walk around and
I see a tail.
oh, Peter. Hi, Peter. Bye, Peter. Um, my dad, me and my dad were estranged for probably 13, 14 years. We didn't speak to each other at all. And in the last year, in December, we actually started talking again. And he would walk around and he was like, there was only one perfect person that walked the earth, and it wasn't you. And I was like, okay. I mean, he wasn't being mean or anything. It was just something that he always said. So, okay. Well, once he found out that we were doing the show through my stepmother, he doesn't say that anymore. They just don't even bring up religion. Well, they don't bring up religion in front of me, but you can always tell when they start talking about when my stepmom starts talking about black people, she'll go, "But I'm not racist."
Which automatically nullifies everything. It's all good now. It's like some kind of,
because you're not racist. Why did that comment even have to enter into your statement?
Yeah, I wondered about that because you were talking about growing up, and it seemed like your mom and dad weren't really pushing. It was more like the grandparents. It was interesting to hear what his point of view was.
My dad's?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't really sat down and had that conversation with him. He doesn't, as long as I can remember, and I'm dating back to when I was a child. Dad never went to church. I don't think I've ever seen a Bible in my dad's hand. And I don't even think I've ever seen my dad bow his head to pray. He's never blessed a meal. But he talks about, things, example, like, there was only one perfect man that walked this earth, and, you weren't him. He says things like that. I know what he's referring to when he says that, but that's really all I've ever heard him say.
He's talking about Elvis, right?
Funny thing about that man too, growing up, because that's who my daddy listened to. He used to always have Elvis on the TV, and I used to always think that Elvis was my daddy because they looked alike.
That's interesting because Elvis got in trouble for all the, kind of dancing, but he really, I think he was a believer, and he did a lot of gospel music.
Yes, there really was. And, I've heard my dad talk about my brother a lot here lately, who's gay, that lives in Atlanta. And, he's like, he finally, told me probably about 2 or 3 months ago. He was like, he's my son. If he wants to have a husband, that's fine. I still love him. Nothing's going to ever change that I love him. And if my son doesn't want to have anything to do with me, I'm okay with that too. But as long as my son knows that I love him, and it doesn't matter, if he decides to have a husband or a wife, or if he decides to never have any kids, I'm okay with that too.
That's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty mature overall.
I think what's happened is Dad's gotten, my dad is 65 years old, and he has not made a lot of right decisions in his life, and he's trying to correct his decisions.
Wow, my parents are 65 as well, so look at that. Got some in common. So
we don't have the same mom and daddy, do we?
I don't think so.
We are from Georgia.
It was from a random law family fact from my aunt, who I think is almost 70 years old, to one of my cousin's kids, who's probably like 10. There were no girls born in the family for that amount of time. It was all boys.
Really?
It was me, my brother, and my cousin and his brother, and that was it for the generation. And then, yeah, some of his kids had, he had a couple of daughters. But anyway, I'm going to take a quick pause because I like to do this in the middle of a show. This is going to be a live read. Want to listen to another show from the South that features a cat named Professor Fuzznuts? Of course you do. So check out The Atheist in the Trailer Park with Tucker Drake, who I met along with the Unbuckling the Bible Belt duo at ReasonCon. His ReasonCon recap is available, episode 46, at podcasters near you. So my cat is talking, of course, because he likes to be part of the show. So we talked about Facebook a little bit. So how careful do you feel like you need to be on social media about what you post, and what gets kind of tagged to you without you knowing, or you having much availability to change it?
Yeah, my Facebook is on strict alert is what I call it. I have to approve everything that I am tagged in. I have got it set up to where I approve anything that is posted to my page. Even Bobby has to sometimes text me and say, "Look, I'm trying to post something to your page. Will you please unblock it?" um, the things that I don't post is about religion, because I do have a lot of my work is on there. People, a lot of the people that I work with, not not in an office setting, but throughout the United States, is on my Facebook page. My kids are on my Facebook page. My ex's mother's on my page, and my ex's wife is on my page. And I have to be careful about what goes up. And it's not so much because I'm scared it's going to be used against me. At this point, I don't really care about it being used against me. What I am concerned about is I do not want my kids to see a whole bunch of arguing over religion on my page. And that's what I'm trying. I want them to, if they have questions, they can come to me and they can ask me. I don't want them to see, you know, um, I don't want the father or anything, or the mother-in-law or the wife or anything, to go up to my kids and go, "Your mom is worshiping the devil." Because as an 8-year-old, that would probably scare the living daylights to him, and he might not want to be around his mother. As for my 14-year-old, he'd probably be like, "Oh, that's cool. My mom rocks." You know.
Yeah, it changes over time, and those messages can definitely not be good. It's like, I don't even think about kids. My cat is clawing me. Anyway, dude, he just loves being part of the show, or my computer's warm. It's one or the other. It's so bizarre.
But yeah, I'm very careful. I do allow pictures. Look, you could clearly go look at my page right now and see all the pictures from ReasonCon. I do post those. Matter of fact, my 14-year-old saw them and he's like, "So, looks like y'all had a whole bunch of fun this weekend." Why, yes, we did.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to hide. It's odd because I have like 2 Twitter accounts, and this is like a second Google account for this show, pretty much just for this show. But on Facebook, I don't really post generally, so every once in a while I do get tagged, and I'm not quite sure what to do because most of the groups I'm on, this guy's got to go, are the kind of private groups.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a setting on your Facebook. I mean, you'd have to go into it through a desktop or your laptop. But there is a setting to where you have to approve everything that you're tagged in. You can pick and choose. It lets you read what's being posted, and then if you don't want it, you just ignore it. And that's what I've done. And it's not that I'm being, it's not like I'm just really going, yeah, I'm ignoring you. I don't want that. It's just that I have certain things I do have to protect.
And I don't blame you for that. So do you ever get into online arguments with people who are like believers, or do you leave that to, Bobby or perhaps Bill?
Just Jeremiah, who does the Bible study with us. I started to actually get into one over Christmas when SASH, the Statesboro Atheist and Secular Humanist group here out of Statesboro, Georgia, put up a FFRF banner in front of the courthouse at Christmas time because there was a manger scene set up there. And of course, it made local news here in Savannah, and there were a lot of people that were pretty brutal on the news's webpage. I mean, on the news's Facebook page. And the thing that I was mostly fighting for was that it's free speech. If you're going to allow one, you have to allow the other. And if you're not going to allow the other, but you're still going to allow the one, then it has no business being there. There is a thing called the separation of church and state.
Haven't heard of it. Oh, I'm in Georgia.
Yeah, no shit. But I did get into a couple of heated debates there where I was trying to you know, showed this, free speech. It had nothing to do with religion. It had everything to do with free speech. And that that debate went on for 2 days, and it like to wore me out. As for everything else, I'll let Bobby and Bill handle it.
Yeah,
I need more knowledge. I don't feel like I have enough knowledge to do all the debating, but I'm gonna tell y'all right now, for everybody that's listening, I am learning. And when I get brave enough, it's on.
well, yeah, once you get through the Bible, which might take like 5 or 6 years, but you'll get there.
I'm working. Hey, I can debate somebody on the books of Genesis through Leviticus. After Leviticus, I'm screwed.
Well, Leviticus for everybody, that's a rough one.
Yes, it is. I definitely had to bring in some alcohol on Leviticus. That was the only way that I could, make it work. And then I also have to do, because I know that Bill and Susie of the Barroom Atheist are listening to this, so I do have to give a shout out to the unclean Bill and Susie.
Unclean. Oh wait, I'm out. Oh, it's too bad. I can't get. That's a good idea. It's like, I can't get a refill till this is over, so that's good, because otherwise you might have a bit much. And the interviewer must stay relatively sober. So was inviting you to join the secular media group the smartest thing David Smalley has ever done?
I think so. I mean, I think that I can bring something. Now, I love I love dogma debate, and I love David Smalley. I mean, he's the one that, made me start really, really, really thinking about things. And to be a part of his group and having somebody on it that's going through a change in their life, it opens it up to his listeners that might be going through the same thing that I am. Callie Wright is part of his group, and you know what she's going through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she brings added value to his group, because it's something out there that his listeners, might not hear all the time on his show, but they can hear it on Callie's show. So I think that it was a very smart idea that David Smalley welcomed us both to his group.
But you mainly, although yeah, Callie, I think I got 50 hugs. I don't know. There were a lot of hugs.
Yes, there were. She's a hugger.
And having to drive home, that stinks.
My gosh. And then she drove back Saturday night.
Yeah, I know. That was crazy.
Yes. She's getting home and we're all just waking up with hangovers.
I think I actually had a dream that night that I was like, I'm driving home straight. I was like, that's not a good idea. I'm glad that didn't actually happen. Exactly.
Me too. I'm glad it didn't happen either.
I've done it before, but it's not letting me do it, which is unfortunate, because I had the picture that I took with David Smalley. Because whoever had my camera took about 20 seconds to actually take the picture, so he went through about a bunch of different poses, and the one he ended up on was pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I've got a picture of me, David Smalley, and David Michael from My Book of Mormon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kiss there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in heaven. Telling you, gonna get it framed and put it above my bed.
Bobby, I think she's got a thing for bald guys, so just. So that might be, that's good for all.
Yeah, but I just want to make it known that Bobby's the first one who turned me on to bald guys.
The first, yeah, you never forget your first, right?
Nope, you never forget your first.
So you're sad that you missed out on Skepperty for us to go to the Golden Corral on Saturday night at Hickory?
Yeah, I am. Because I was actually looking forward to it, and then when I caught I came in. I'm not sure when you got there, because I think we all hauled butt with Matthew so that we could try to Matthew the Apostle.
Yeah, we were a car behind you.
Yeah, so we all hauled butt, and I came in on it, and it was so awesome, because it was to hear people go, just let's go with Just for the Ladies for 200. I'm like, yes, I did that segment. So that was pretty awesome because it made me realize that it was being recognized.
Yeah, and Callie getting to win was good too.
Yeah, and she didn't have to pay anybody to win.
Wait, were there bribes involved that I missed out on?
I heard something about maybe David Smalley was paying some people off throughout the game.
I could see
$20
that.
here or something like that. And he had Phil sitting next to him. So I mean, Phil was probably going, yeah, you can risk $20. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, the Skepardy, and I'll explain it real quick. It was kind of like Jeopardy, but it was 2-person teams, and it was different podcasters. And for the most part, it was usually one person from the team who was answering all the questions. Like it was David with Phil Ferguson, and David seemed to be the one answering all the questions. And it was Callie with, I think it was Andrew Garber, and then one of the atheists, Atheism 101, and it was Chris was Seasoned Heathen, and he was answering most of the questions. So it was, the 2 people, and they were pressing their buttons. I think sometimes they were just pressing it because it sounded like a car alarm. And various, different people came in, and anyone listening to this, the ReasonCon 2016, from what Gene, who put this together, said, it sounded like we're doing it next year. So we're already like, the countdown has continued.
We're down 362 more days
until
gone.
So as part of your transition,
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Yeah, I think my internet occasionally. I was doing a show earlier today. My internet died right after it was over. I'm like, perfect. I think that happens. It's my wife and I both used it at the same time. So you mentioned during your interview, Bobby was a Buddhist for a while, and then you were a Buddhist. Do you still kind of use some of those? Was it the 8 pillars or something of Buddhism in your daily life?
I do. It's the whole practice kindness. Understand that you're not the only person walking around who's got hurt in their lives. There are other people out there that has hurt in their lives. And, one of the biggest things that I took away from Buddhism was, and I might have to elaborate on this a little bit more, is that just because Bobby may be annoying to me doesn't mean that he's annoying to you. Does that make any sense?
That's good to know.
In other words, just because I might find Bobby annoying, that is something that's I'm using you as an example. Stop looking at me like that. If he had this, those cartoon characters where they had the bubbles that come out their head.
Oh, the thought bubbles.
Yeah. The ass bubble just came out. One of the biggest things I learned is that just because, and I'm going to use Bobby as an example again, just because I might find Bobby annoying, that's something that's within me that I have to deal with. Okay, that means there's something. I'm not going to say there's something wrong with me, because there's nothing wrong with me. It's just an inner thing that I have to deal with. And just because I might find him annoying doesn't mean that everybody else is going to find him annoying. In other words, there's nothing wrong with Bobby. It's something that I've got to deal with within myself. And because I took that away from Buddhism, I've actually gotten along with a lot more people.
Bobby's like, finally, someone else agrees that I'm not annoying.
Bobby really isn't annoying, y'all. I was using that as an example.
Oh, and I think, let me try this again.
Oh, I love that picture.
There's the picture.
Love the picture. That's David Smalley.
I didn't take enough pictures while I was there, because I was like, well, I have to get a picture of Bobby Susie. I had to get a picture with you. Bill and Susie, sorry. Get you. Oh, that's a slip right there. No. Bill and Susie, Bobby and Ashley, and then, the random picture with David Smalley.
Yeah, I didn't get as many pictures either because, I left my cell phone at the Cracker Barrel in Georgia.
So you left it at a Cracker Barrel. Okay. Yep. I left my heart at the Cracker Barrel. That could be a...
Yes, I left my heart at the Cracker Barrel. Sounds like a country song.
Exactly.
So it was up to Bobby to take pictures all weekend, and we pretty much went our separate ways when we got there, and we'd meet up and we'd pop a couple of pictures together, and then we'd go our separate ways again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Like, whoa. I think there were a few times where I saw you and at least 2 or 3 people were like, "Where's Bobby?" I don't have a tracking device on me.
No, I don't have a tracking device, but there were a lot of times this weekend I wish I had a tracking device on him because I needed his phone to take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like 1 minute he was there, and the next minute he's gone. It's like he was like disappeared. He was Super Bobby.
Saying I'm always Super Bobby. So here's a question. So I'm still in a mixed relationship. Wife's a believer. I'm not. I've heard quite a lot of examples of the guy in the relationship kind of starting with the atheism and then having to kind of bring the spouse or significant other along slowly. In your particular situation, what kind of helped and what was maybe kind of a pain in the butt during that time period where you were kind of in a mixed relationship? Bobby's like, nothing.
I wish y'all could have seen these faces. Well, Bobby was the pain in the butt the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
No, the biggest pain in the butt was that I'm somebody who always wants to learn, and I always want to know, more about things. And when it first came about, because Bobby was so angry or had so much anger in him, the thing that really got on my nerves so much is because he was always mad and he was always, fussing about religion and, religious people are dumb and religious people are stupid and hearing all these comments. And that was the biggest thing for me. I was like, look, if this is the type of person you're going to be, then I don't want any part of this. I'm
In
tapped
no
out.
way resembles those remarks. No way. Never, not me, just Bobby. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So finally I had to sit down and tell him, you need to tell me if you want me to be a part of it. I support you, but if you want me to actually be a part of this, you're going to have to tell me something good about atheism. And of course, then he opens me up to all the charities and all the foundations that are out there. And he shows me the humanistic side of it. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, oh, wow, they feed hungry people. Oh, wow, they help people who are been misplaced out of their homes. Oh, they help people who have lost their jobs due to being an atheist. They fight for women's rights, which is one of my biggest things. And once he started introducing me to those type things, then I started, okay, I became like the information. I was about to say information whore, but that wouldn't have been nice. I wanted to know more. And the more I got to know, the more people I got to know and realize that you're not judged. You can be who you want to be. And I think that if you were to kind of start doing that with your wife or your significant, is it your wife?
Yep.
If you were to start showing her start taking her to fundraisers, start showing her just, hey, look, this group of people, she don't have to know what they're doing. Not yet. Or know what group they are. Hey, look at this group of people. They're feeding 10,000 children instead of giving, 10% to the church. Things like that. That was where it drug me in and wanted me to know more, was seeing the humanistic side of it.
Yeah, there's maybe a nurturing side. Like, we are helping humanity, As I mentioned to Callie, and I'll say that I agree that you and Bobby both fit on there, the Jerry DeWitt kind of love for humanity, which shines through, and you got to have that. If you had that, you're on your way, and it's a glorious thing.
Oh yeah, you got to have love. You might not have to have religion, but you got to have love.
Definitely. Well, I've taken up a good amount of your time, so I want to finish up tonight by you getting to ask me a question.
Oh, well, why don't you just like put me on the spot?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can
well, I
do
have
that.
two. Can I have a one question that's got two parts?
Sure.
Okay. First question: how long have you been an atheist?
Probably forever. I don't think my parents didn't raise us in a religion, so I never really thought about it. And I think when I kind of realized that you could be something, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm anything.
ReasonCon was your first conference, correct?
Well, there was a local one called Skeptic Camp, but it was more skeptic, and I feel like this was really the full blown experience for me that I had not had before. So yes, it was.
After going to this first experience, what did you take away from it?
I took away that it's okay to be me. I think during my life, and who knows what exactly was the cause for this, I've had kind of self-esteem issues. So the I'm good enough as who I am is a big deal. And I think in a way, I wouldn't have been able to call my mom on Sunday night when I got home and told her I was an atheist. Now, whether she told my dad that, I don't know, but I'd been coming up to my parents' house for probably the last 3 to 4 years. Like,
Mhm.
this is the time I'm going to do it. And we just get along so well. I'm like, there's this little chance something bad could happen, so I'm not going to do it. And I was like, well, okay, but you're in that case, I am putting the other person's feelings over mine, which is something I do in general. But in some cases, you have to say, this is it. This is who I am, like it or not. And so far, the answer is like it.
Right. Yeah, I read your when I read your post that you had just come out to your mom. I showed it to Bobby and I was like, "See what ReasonCon does to people?"
Yeah, and you can kind of get overconfident when you're in a group of like-minded people. You're like, well, everybody's like that, and no, not really. Take it to an extreme, but it, you have to in a way, you have to get your liver, recovered and yourself recovered. Because yeah, you can be yourself, but sometimes saying everything that's on your mind is not the best thing to do.
All right.
That's the balance you have to do, but just to be open. And I think that's what it's probably some marketing term, like a cold open, like where you kind of a soft open of a product where it's not like that's what I'm doing on Facebook, I guess.
I got you.
Facebook is like the test.
Yes, it is. It is.
I
And you
still
know
have
what?
the
I have to say that I'm very proud of you for having the courage to go do that.
well, it was only after talking to my mom for an hour and getting off the phone with her and realizing that, you know,
Now is the time.
getting a little push from the wife, and it was like, yeah. Because in a way, you're out of town for a weekend and you don't necessarily want to tell everybody where you were and what you were doing.
Right.
Some people you do. I met a friend who I know through my other life as a fantasy football person, and I told him about it, and he just had that kind of like, huh, look into his face, like, okay, I guess that's okay. And we moved on, and it was okay, but it was one of those, I'm picking something up, but yeah. So tell everybody, where on earth can they find you and your fine program?
You can find us at noreligionrequired.com. You can also find us at noreligionrequired.secularmediagroup.com. We can be found on iTunes, where you can leave us a 5-star rating if you'd like. And we can also be found on Spreaker and Stitcher. The Spreaker is what is it, the dogma debate? Help me out here. He does all this. Remember, I just show up.
Oh, now you want my opinion?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, they can find No Religion Required at noreligionrequired.com. They can find it at noreligionrequired.secularmediagroup.com. I know, but I'm saying it better.
Ooh, in his deep
They
voice.
can
I can
also
feel
find us-
your voice. I can't just hear it.
Ass.
They can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and on Spreaker under Secular Media Group. Just click on Collections, and we're right there with Dogma Debate, Secular Sexuality, Community Mission Chapel, the Atheist Manifesto, and us. And I'm pretty sure I forgot one. So
I have one last thing I have to say before we go. It was part of the Skepperty that we talked about.
Sure.
How cool was it that the final question was my favorite verse? Ezekiel.
Oh, right. The one that's might not be in the Gideons.
Yes, and that is what Callie won with.
And of course, one quick memory as well, Beth Presswood and Dave Fitzgerald doing Song of Solomon.
Yes.
With the kind of pornish music was nice. See, this is one, and I'll try to cut it off after this, but this is one thing where going to this kind of conference doesn't bleed well into real life, because I have an ex-coworker who's Catholic and said something about the Bible has good teachings, and I was like, yeah, the Song of Solomon, that's hot, and that did not elicit a positive response.
No.
It may be true, but it doesn't mean that everybody's gonna, get the joke in a way. That just seems odd to be in a holy book. Anyway, yes. So for me, you can find me on Twitter, Zachrilege. Just look right below me and you can see how it's spelled, because it's a bit confusing. There's a Zachrilege cast page on Facebook. That's what I got so far. One of these days I may be a podcast boy, but for now I am a YouTube guy. So I will say once again, thank you to Miss Ashley and thank you to Bobby for providing the equipment. Good night.
I have I want you to know something. I turned the equipment on this tonight.
Oh. Watch out, everybody. The night is young. So good night and stay skeptical.